Hello, everybody. This is Peter Cipcowski, and this is another segment of the series of conversations with local leaders in the Roe Jan area, sponsored by the Roe Jan Community Library. And today, I'm very happy to have Dr. Neil Howard, the school superintendent of Taconic Hills Central School District, my alma mater. And I'm very happy to see you this morning, Neil. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Peter. Glad to be here.
I should call you Dr. Howard.
No, no, please don't. Neil is perfect.
Well, I have great respect for what you do. We all do. And I'll just imagine doctor in front of your name, Neil. So, but thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
So, you know, we have a lot to talk about, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about your own personal story and where you grew up and how you came into education, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So I guess I was not always an educator, but I was into sports and ended up getting recruited by the Naval Academy, Annapolis, Maryland. Went there for a couple of years. Decided that my passions lied other places, left the Naval Academy, went to Syracuse University, graduated from there, and then was a little unsure about what I was going to do with my life, and packed the car and moved to Houston, Texas, and enrolled in Texas Chiropractic College, and was down there for 3.5 years, became a doctor in chiropractic, and then I came back to the area and opened up a practice in Hudson, down on Warren Street. And at that time, I felt as if I was spending a lot of time educating my patients on how to take care of their body and bodies and the biomechanics of the body in order to help themselves, basically. And then a position opened up as an adjunct professor over at the community college at Columbia Green. Started teaching over in the nursing program over there for a little bit. And then that decided that was my passion more than chiropractic, educating. And so then from there, was down in Pine Plains for a while, was up in Ravenna and Greene County for 10 or 12 years, and then joined the Board of Education here at Taconic Hills. And then a principal position to open up in the middle school. I applied for it, was lucky enough to get the position. And then the superintendent job after 4 years opened up, applied for that, and was lucky enough to be appointed in that position here. I did go to Taconic Hills in my early education through 4th grade. But it was interesting back then in the mid 70s, they were talking about double sessions at that time. I actually did kindergarten in a trailer behind Taconic. And I did 3rd grade in a church basement in Philmont. And then 4th grade got back to, I don't know, Joe McCrudden and Jim Merrill were team teaching in the Taconic building for 4th grade. From there, my parents took us 3 children out, my brother and sister. We went to the Claverick Elementary School, then to the Hudson Middle School, and then graduated from Hudson. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a flavor. I'm pretty much a local guy.
Yeah, you sure are. And the 70s were wild for Taconic Hills. There was a lot of change. Some of our listeners may not know that there had been a merger of 2 separate districts before you entered elementary school and before I was an elementary student in Roe Jan. We had the Taconic School District and the Roeliff Jansen School District, and the state required those 2 districts to merge. Technically, I think around 1969, but they didn't actually start interacting until 1972, I believe, when elementary students would go to their geographically close buildings. So you went to Taconic, I went to the Roeliff Jansen School. Middle school students from both sections of the district came into the newly named Taconic Hills school system, to the Roeliff Jansen building, and high school students at the Taconic building. That's correct.
Sounds about right.
Okay, all right. And I was a middle school student at Roe Jan and a high school student at Taconic. And we only dreamed in the 70s about a wonderful new building, which you now have the pleasure of presiding over.
Yes, completion of the building was in '99. There's many votes taken over many years. Uh, it was a complicated situation.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly was. And of course, the result is that we have two forlorn empty buildings. Well, I guess one is actually privately owned and somewhat occupied. The Taconic building and the Roe Jan building, of course, is heartbreakingly um, fading and causing a lot of concern in our community that it sits there. But Taconic Hills Central School System, you have a lot on your plate now, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about. Let's start with the challenges around COVID, and how you've been responding to it directly. What's working?
Well, oh boy, where to start? So the governor decided that it was in the best interest for public health reasons to shut the school districts down. And I use that term very loosely because it's not really shut down, but we have canceled online, or we have canceled the brick and mortar classes. Several years ago, Taconic Hills made a concerted effort to leverage the technology and the internet. We decided to phase in laptops for all the students. So first grade to 12th grade have laptops. We've been working with several of the internet companies to get the high-speed internet. We've been part of some of those county discussions. So we actually put on a technology integration specialist about 4 years ago. And what we did is we took a math teacher and we put them what we call a TOSA, a teacher on special assignment, and technology integration specialist. So we had already been moving to this virtual online type of world or learning platform. And what was driving us was children's own particular needs for education. So a lot of the kids in school are really digital natives already. This is just another extension. Now, don't get me wrong, we've been really pushed because it's not the end all be all online, and there's a lot of information, media information out there, and kids are having a tough time sorting through all of it. And we've tried to go at the appropriate speed. A lot of it is just making the adults comfortable in delivering in a virtual platform.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes, please.
So obviously a digital platform, web-based content instruction, you're saying has an obvious place in instruction, but I'm guessing that what you're really saying is that it's really there to help teaching, right? It's there to support teaching. It doesn't replace the classroom teacher. It enhances the teacher's instruction, correct?
Yes.
So
yeah.
How much of that were you integrating into the school before we all went digital outside of the classroom?
I would say that maybe 50 to 60% of our teachers were doing Google Classroom, were doing some sort of web-based, cloud-based assignments and instruction. Mm-hmm. So we've also been dabbling in flipped learning.
Describe what that is for our listeners.
Well, I think it can take a couple of different forms, but I think flipped learning is basically at Taconic Hills is that you're giving kids information to consume, and so the teacher is not regurgitating it from the front of the classroom at the podium. So you're giving them a lot of information. You're asking them to come into class all ready to have the intellectual discussions, the challenging questions answered, uh, by using some sort of media presentation.
Hmm.
So you're giving that to them first, and then they're consuming it, and then you're having the meat and potatoes discussion in the classroom.
Got it. Got it. So now that all of your students are working remotely, uh, uh, is there? I mean, the reality is in our community is that not everyone has access to Wi-Fi. Even if you have access to Wi-Fi, you may not be able to afford access to Wi-Fi. So, um, how are we? How are you? How are you addressing the needs of those kids right now?
That's difficult. So as best as we can tell in the secondary, we have about 85% of our students are participating in the online. So that leaves us about 15% or so, which for one reason or another, as you described, may have certain challenges. So we do have Wi-Fi here at school. We encourage kids to come here, to sit in our parking lot, to be able to use our Wi-Fi, but some of them can't even get here.
Hmm.
We've tried to make available, a lot of the town halls have Wi-Fi, some of the fire departments, of course, the libraries have Wi-Fi. So we're encouraging people to go to those places as well. And we're talking with 4 or 5 internet companies to let it, to have signups for free Wi-Fi, and to put it kind of, I don't know, some people say that we've guilted some of the companies into providing the services for free. I don't know. We're just asking them to do what's right.
Hmm.
I don't want to, and we're working with again 4 or 5 companies. I don't want to mention any names, but we're trying to make sure that our kids have access. And inevitably, we do have some that do not.
Sure. And how's it going for the classroom teachers? I'm sure that even some of your teachers have had to sort of jump in and learn new technology and a new style of communicating and teaching with kids. How's that going?
Certainly. To be able to watch a chorus class over Zoom is quite interesting. Um, and yeah, the teachers have really stepped up to the plate. They've upped their game tremendously. They are reaching out to kids, emails, parents, more communication with parents and children on an individual basis has never taken place
Mm.
here. We have our small advisory groups, sort of like a mentoring program that even my kids participate in it. And my son got a card from his advisor the other day, just checking in. I know that there's a lot of meetings and emails going back and forth. Uh, so yeah, the teachers are doing fantastic. The aides, unbelievable, reaching out. The teaching assistants, unbelievable, reaching out to all of these kids, the guidance counselors, the social workers, the principals. There's a lot of work being done at Taconic Hills, and I'm very proud of all the employees, the bus drivers, the food service individuals. It's just amazing.
Tell us a little bit about that, Neil. I have personally been behind a bus or two the last couple of weeks, and it's so awesome to see these buses moving around, even if they're not transporting children, they're transporting food. And I've been hearing, as town supervisor, I get calls from folks, uh, uh, good and bad, right? But
Yeah.
everyone has been raving about both the quality of the teaching that their kids are getting and the food that's being delivered to a lot of kids who may not otherwise have a lot of food on their table. So tell us a little bit about that plan.
So we hover between 60 and 65% free and reduced lunch. And of course, last year we went to a community eligibility provision, which means all kids, no matter what their income or background, get free breakfast and free lunch if they choose it. And of course, there is reimbursement to a certain extent back from the federal government. And so we are taking advantage of that. We do want to keep all of our employees working because we are paying them. We need them to do something, right? So it's tough for bus drivers. It's tough for food service people who are pretty much paid on an hourly basis. So We want them to be productive. So what we decided to do was 3 times a week, a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that we would go around to all the normal bus stops, have the kids come out, and of course, socially distance appropriate. Some are wearing masks. Our employees are now wearing masks, and then be able to distribute a breakfast and lunch. So they're getting 2 meals 3 times a week. At the that we have, I mean, that's a big deal for these kids.
You bet.
Uh, this takes a big burden off the parents. But we also have the backpack program. So we feed about, I think the number is 51 families, in which we fill up a backpack, and the kid usually takes it home on a Friday, brings it back on a Monday. Of course, then we fill it up again and send it home the next Friday. And it's been modified now a little bit. We're trying to do it more on a Monday basis and Friday basis because of bus transportation and how it seems to work better. We get more of a Mondays and Fridays. So we're doing about 1,200 meals on Monday, 1,200 on Wednesday, and 1,200 on Friday. So our food service folks are working. There's a system set up in the cafeteria and in the kitchens. It's loaded onto the buses by some of our custodial staff and then driven around by our bus drivers, and one food service personnel typically goes with the bus to be able to either place it on the ground next to the person so there's no physical contact. And the kids seem to be doing well with it. They're excited to see the bus come, even though they're not getting on it.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. It's always wonderful to see a scholar waiting for the bus. And now twice I've gotten behind. I guess my route to town hall, I've gotten behind a bus, and so I see the same parent, the same child, the same bus driver, the same process, the same system, like clockwork. It's great. So congratulations for that. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. I'll pass that on.
Is there anything that the community could be doing, to support the district, Neil? I mean, you mentioned.
We've had a lot of people step up and offer, but a lot of people have volunteered. Do you need some tutoring? Do you need some meal delivery? And at this point, I thank them very much, but I think we're doing okay. I think that we're keeping our people employed. They're busy. And I wouldn't want to maybe take away some of their time from an employee type of position with a volunteer.
Right.
So even though I appreciate all the help, maybe when this gets back to normal, we can reevaluate and see how we could ask the community for some more help. But they've been so supportive already. I would only ask that they support their local food banks. And that would probably be the biggest thing on our end. So.
Yeah, and of course, people have been so incredibly giving with both money, with contributions to the food bank. That has been an amazing response. But tell me, I mean, as superintendent, I'm sure that one of your premier goals is the academic achievement of your students, and even in the best of worlds, with engaged teachers working online with their students with the best broadband possible, which we know we don't have, you have a challenge in your district, like every superintendent. So
right.
tell us a little bit about how you might, what you're thinking about in terms of addressing that gap.
So this gets really complicated because the governor has basically given everyone a pass on attendance, on a pass on the regents. They have modified the AP exams for the more able learner. Even the college classes that we offer here, they've gotten somewhat of a pass as colleges go more online and go to a pass-fail system. So it's, I guess, the gold standard of, obviously, in New York State is the percentage of children that graduate. So we want to focus on that as much as possible. So there are those regions which are required for graduation. So now if you get a pass on them, we're probably going to see a year or two where it's going to be probably a little easier to graduate because it's going to be based a little bit more on effort than anything else. But what we're always concerned with is engaging the student. And how do you engage the student? Because it's the disengaged student who typically does not graduate. So it's not necessarily that academics in that sense is very important, obviously, but to make the connection with the student, to make sure that they feel that they are valued and their opinion is included, is a guarantee that they're going to put forth effort for you and make the graduation standards. So I guess I'm worried that we still have some kids which are not engaged, and we are struggling to try to figure out how to reach them appropriately. Now, some of the social workers have been making home visits. Some of the principals have been making home visits. Even our school resource deputy has made some wellness checks and some home visits. So we're still struggling, I think, with some of that.
What a huge problem you have to solve, not just for the students who are engaged and making sure that they're college and career ready, but then that percentage of students who are falling behind and the gap gets wider for them and they fall further behind.
You'd be surprised. It's been a interesting mixed blessing. Some of our students who were not very engaged for whatever reason, some of them are stepping up to the plate, and I would say that there are some other students who were more engaged now are less engaged at this time because of COVID-19 and the class cancellation. So we've got a little bit of maybe a shift in the balance. So I've checked in on a couple of kids that are on my radar, and one kid, a junior high student who was a nudge, a little bit of an itch, seems to be doing extremely well right now and seems to be actually making a little bit more progress than he was making in the past. And then there are some other children who were responding well to teachers, seem to be coming down a little bit and not responding. So there's a waxing and waning going on here. And, everybody has a different style of learning, and it changes sometimes. So we do see maybe a little shift in the balancing occurring here. And we just want the teachers to be aware of that, because we are trying to formulate some sort of plan of how to operate when the governor says we can welcome students back.
When is that going to be? I mean, it is the 27th of April. I know that the governor said May 15th. I know that many of us are waiting for the governor to, are kids getting back to school this year?
I don't know.
Yeah.
He's going to make a decision this week, according to his weekend briefings. We'll see how that goes. I really don't know. We have our Questar 3 superintendent meetings 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We had ours this morning at 9, and Gladys Cruz, our district superintendent at Questar 3, she doesn't have any information. A lot of this has been passed from the Department of Education over to the governor's office. So he's got his phases, that he released, I believe, Saturday night. Also, we're worried about the budget. We're worried about voting. All of those things that are happening this season, and it's all playing a role. Now today they just notified us, Section 2 just notified us that the championships for athletics is going to be canceled. I know that was what some of the kids were hanging on, that they would still be able to get ball games in, to get a few track meets in, to get a couple of tennis matches in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of answers on that front.
Yeah.
So I hope we get back as soon as possible. I know we're misting. That's our sterilization type of process, our decontamination. We do have masks that we've ordered. We have lots of hand sanitizer. We are talking about smaller sizes of classes, limiting people in the lunchroom, limiting people in the hallway. Challenges in a public school.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to figure out. Well, this is a fascinating conversation, and thanks so much for sharing your time this morning. Are there any other sort of final thoughts? Anything else that you'd like to convey before we wrap this up?
Well, I just want to make sure that everyone knows the kids are doing their jobs, the teachers are doing their jobs, and I go Titans.
Right on. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Neil, for your leadership. For inspiring your teachers to stay the course, and all of your scholars. So, thank you so much for your time today, and stay safe.
You too. My pleasure.